knew I was a sinner. I knew that.
Yeah.
But the question was, how do I move forward? How do I become emotionally healthy? Forget about pastoring a church. I'm just talking about me.
Right.
And that was where I began to learn through a lot of series of seminars and different things that, God doesn't feel poorly toward me.
Mm-hmm.
God doesn't hate me.
Mm-hmm.
God is not abandoned me, which I had felt before. He has a loving relationship with me, which I can reciprocate because I know he does it toward me. I can return it because I know I'm safe. Eternity starts when your heart is united with God. That's when eternal life starts. It's not when you die.
I like that.
The Christian is born twice, but only dies once. I was given this sense of hope, and I think a lot of people forget there is hope. Mm-hmm. Preachers love to say hope is a verb and a noun. Well, that's a grammatical distinction, but hope can be a very real reality in your mind, because when you lose hope, you are in serious trouble.
For sure.
And your hope is not based on an idea or a philosophical concept. It's based on a person, which is Jesus. He is the hope. He's called, Paul calls him the blessed hope.
Yeah.
And that's what people need to hang on to is hope. Not wishful hoping, like I wish I got this for my birthday, or I hope I get this for my birthday.
Right.
No, my hope is that God is in control of my life. I'm not saying like the whole world,
right?
But you can choose to let God be in control of your life.
Yeah.
And as best as you're able to do so, and God help me to be more trusting and more hopeful about the future, because when we know the end, we know it's good.
For sure.
And we can dwell on that rather than the problems or the challenges of this world.
Hey, welcome to God's Glory and Men's Real Stories. Whether this is your first time joining us or you've been here from the start, I'm grateful you're here. I want you to look at this as a safe space for real stories and conversations. Stories of struggle, healing, and the hope we find in God. No matter what your journey looks like, I just want you to know that it matters. You matter, and your story is far from over. Today, I've got my co-host and son, Justin, with us. Justin Moore with us today. Yep. And before we even get into it, let's knock out some things real quick. Let's just knock out some of the prerequisites of. So if you're watching on YouTube, I want you to go ahead and hit that thumbs up. No matter what you're doing or where you're watching or listening to, I want you to subscribe now so that you'll never miss an episode. So go ahead and hit that bell if you can. Go ahead and hit that thumbs up if you can, because trust me, you will be glad you did. More importantly, I think I don't say this enough, but don't keep these conversations to yourself. I want you to share this with someone who needs to hear this episode. So you didn't come here to just hear announcements. You came here to hear a story. And my guest has got one for you today. Today, I got another one of my barn brothers and outpost brothers with us. And outside of crossing off his bucket list of items for him in his life, I know God has way more planned for this conversation than either one of us can imagine. So I want to welcome our brother, Scott Gerard to the episode. Gerard.
Yes, correct.
I wanted to say but you said soft G. So Gerard.
Correct.
Got it. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So glad you're here today.
I'm glad to be here.
We've cut up already before we even got started today, and we cut up when we talked on the phone. So I was like, man, with nothing else, they're going to laugh at us tonight. They're going to laugh. They're going to enjoy this. Up. Yeah, we are. So why don't you start off by telling people a little bit about yourself? Just give a little simple introduction as we're going to get into the greater story of you.
Okay.
But just give
I'll try
basic.
to be brief. My real identity was not real good. I mean, in other words, I was very, very shy. I was very self-deprecating. I didn't learn that word till college, but I just didn't like myself, really.
Okay.
So that my identity was with my family, and my family was pretty negative. So that was my first identity.
Okay.
But
What did that identity
What
If you were
does it
to
feel
like, if you were to like try to describe that identity, what did that identity look like to you if you looked at yourself in the mirror?
I would say it was a poor identity, even though I was fairly athletic, not super athletic. I mean, I was in shape and I was thin and I was tall, but I was not good at basketball.
Okay.
I mean, I just wasn't.
So tell me this: do you feel like in your upbringing, do you feel like basketball was what kind of made a man? If he because I think and I'm sure my son gets this too. Like when you're tall, it's almost like it's a requirement that you play basketball. People ask you, "Oh, you must play basketball," and so if you don't, it almost feels like a missed identity.
Well, yeah, and being shy, I found out that girls didn't naturally come toward me. I didn't have a magnetic personality.
Okay.
And girls, I wouldn't say they were shy, but in those days, I was raised in the 60s, boys had to ask girls for a date. Never the other way around, except on Sadie Hawkins Day. That's the only exception. You ever heard of that?
No, what is Sadie Hawkins Day?
That was a day when the girls could ask the guys for a date. The only day.
So wait, who is Sadie Hawkins?
I don't know. It was just a name. I mean, it's a strange thing. But anyway, it's the opposite now. But anyway, my identity, I thought I could gain or at least project myself as a more desirable candidate because I think I did want to have a girlfriend, but never did achieve that. But I used athletics. So I tried football, didn't like it, tried basketball, couldn't make the team, and then went out for cross country and track, and I made that because I don't think many people wanted that sport anyway. It was kind of a secondary sport.
Right.
And I wasn't very good at that, but I kept at it. And
so tell me this then.
Yeah.
Did you feel like sports was what was going to give you that open door to like maybe a girlfriend, maybe like popularity,
at
or
least
whatever?
a date?
Okay.
I mean, I was shooting. I had to start somewhere. A date would have been better than no date.
Okay.
And I did have one date in high school.
Okay.
But it had nothing to do with sports.
All right. So how did that even happen?
There was a girl in my class. It was my worst class. It was math, and she was good at math, and I was bad at math. And I thought, well, maybe she could help me with math. That was not a date, but it could lead to a date.
Right.
So I failed the class, actually, but I just thought maybe, I mean, she was a nice-looking girl and very attractive, and I thought maybe I could work up the courage to ask her.
Right.
Well, I finally did. And she accepted, but only once. So I guess first date was last date. It didn't help me that much because it was kind of a rejection.
It kind of felt,
if they only go out on one date, that's kind of a rejection.
Well, I think you could dice that up a million different ways. I think that sometimes what we see is rejection, or what we see is like, okay, I got one shot and I didn't get an opportunity for a second shot. May have just been a blessing in disguise, and not to say that she was a bad person, but maybe she wasn't the person for you.
No.
No matter how hard we try, sometimes we want that connection, but sometimes that connection is not always right, and I can see that in my own story.
I couldn't see that. I was just going for one date.
No, for sure.
And then I was
Same
hoping
here.
for a follow-up, but it didn't happen.
Okay.
And I sort of gave up. And so as far as identity, I just didn't feel good about myself, partly because my parents were not encouragers. They literally said, and this is a direct quote, I never forgot it. My mother said, and she was a lot nicer than my dad. She said, "Scott, you'll never amount to anything." Now that hurt. That really hurt, and I don't know where it came from.
So wait, this is your mother that said this. Wow.
That's bad.
And okay, so and you said that she was a lot nicer than your dad.
Right.
So I guess that was like the most encouragement, or somewhat of an encouragement, that you got, because I didn't feel like encouragement.
That was discouragement.
Yeah, I would say for sure.
That was painful, and I still can remember it to this day. I can remember the context. I remember when it was said, and I can tell you when it happened. I was 16, and I was going to get my driver's license, but I failed the test. And Mother said, Scott, I guess you'll never amount to anything. In fact, she says, you're just a nincompoop. That was, she wasn't normally like that. But, you know, I think we pick up on things that are negative because they're so painful.
Yeah,
and
for
I,
sure.
I just didn't know where it come from, or it was almost like she didn't like me. But I know that wasn't true.
Right, right.
But it felt that way.
Okay, so I think there's definitely something to the fact that you remember the age and the moment, because I believe, and I've seen it many times, where something happens in our life and it almost is, it's like it takes a stamping moment. It's a stamping moment in our life where it's like, that happened. I remember it clear as day. And ever since then, I have wondered where that came from. And then the question is do we live out of what they say about us, or do we go about trying to prove them wrong the rest of our life? So what came next after like her making that comment?
Well, I guess after the initial hurt, I didn't really dwell on it so much until it came back years later. But it set in motion, I guess, what we would call a vow or an agreement. Like, you know, I don't think I said I will prove them wrong. I don't remember saying that consciously, but something subconsciously probably said, well, you know, I think I'm going to go to college. And I wasn't against college, but it was, first of all, the best part about college is I got to move away from home. The second part about college is it gave me a goal. It was built in. I didn't have to think about it.
Right.
4 years from now, I will have a degree.
Yeah.
Something my mother had, but my father never did. And he kind of drilled that into us. He was not allowed to finish college, and he wanted to become a veterinarian, and he never did.
Why is that?
Why he didn't?
Yeah.
Because his mother told him after one semester, you got to come home because I'm running a boarding house and I can't run it without you. And he never went back to college. He wasn't allowed to.
Got it. Wow.
So it was a painful thing for him.
Yeah.
And so I think he sort of projected on us, well, maybe I didn't go to college, but you can.
Okay.
And he was willing to pay for it.
That's not a bad thing.
That's
I think
not
that
bad.
sometimes,
No, I don't.
you know, I think sometimes as a parent, I can say, well, I never did that well, so I projected onto my son to say, well, you'll probably never do this either. Like you don't, or I did so good without college, you don't need to go to college. And so sometimes that can become almost like a pendulum of like, oh man, well, my kids don't need it, or maybe you don't need it. And look how well I did. And so I don't expect you to do better than me, or I expect you to do better than me. So I don't know.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I didn't really overanalyze it at the time, and I still don't. But I do think that parents have back up just a second. My dad, I was talking about my mother being better than my dad in some ways, but my dad had two big problems. One, he was very angry, and I think it came from his childhood because his mother and father divorced when he was 5, officially not on paper, but you know, the cheap divorce.
Right.
And so he never had a father figure until he got into Boy Scouts at the age of 12. And then he was also had a problem with drinking, which I don't know how that got started, but he was in the military, so maybe it started there. So he would use drinking as a way to deal with problems.
Right.
But he traveled a lot, which his way, I think, of proving his worth, because he made a good living.
Yeah.
But he had to pay a price by being gone a week or two at a time. That when I was growing up, he was always gone a week or two at a time. Always.
Yeah.
He had other jobs later, but while I was growing up, he had the traveling sales. He traveled 5 states. So when he was gone, he was really gone.
Right. Well, I think it's funny. You just mapped out exactly. Like it's interesting how you were like, well, my dad grew up and I feel like, you know, what hindered him or what hurt him was the divorce between his parents.
Yes.
And sometimes what hurts, whether it be a fear or just like, I don't understand, can turn into, well, because I don't have the words and I don't have an explanation, it turns into anger. And anger is masked or numbed out by liquor. And so it's funny how they're parallel to each other. Me and my son, we talk about that often, of like how something can start as like, I'm scared. I was scared. Something that happened scared me. It made me fear ever experiencing that again. So in turn, what I did was I just masked it with anger. I was upset. And so I wouldn't always be upset. I would have to do whatever, drink, so that I didn't always come off as an angry person. So it numbed or calmed the anger.
But it didn't work that way for him. There's people that are called angry drunks, and there's people who are called nice drunks. He was an angry drunk.
Okay.
He actually got angrier once he started drinking. Now, he would drink various things, but he liked liquor. He liked the hard stuff. And it would take him about 30 minutes, and he would be in a full-blown drunk. And then he got, I would call it violent. I don't mean hitting violent, but violent words, a lot of cursing, throwing dishes, just very angry words. And so that made us, I know for sure, afraid of him. We didn't want to be around him when he was angry, and especially angry drunk. Even though he was only there a few days, they were not the days we wanted to interact with him, because we were afraid he would say something not hitting,
Just
but
say something
violent or angry or demeaning.
Yeah.
Like I told you what my mother said.
Right.
My dad wasn't quite as demeaning as my mother, but he had his ways of withholding any kind of encouragement, like, son, you did such a good job. Never heard that. Never heard words like, I love you, son, either my mother or my dad. And they were never very affectionate, really. And it was strange to me, because I didn't know what was normal, but I saw other kids interact with their parents differently. And I thought, is that normal or is mine normal?
Right. Yeah. Well, tell me this: did you ever see your parents? I mean, did your parents ever go back and forth, like the way that you experienced your dad? Did you ever experience that with your parents?
What do you mean back?
Like between the two of them, like the anger, the fighting.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
That was where it was. That was the source of it, because my mother would say something, and my dad would say, "Well, why did you do that? That's stupid. Why did you pay that much for this particular item?" I'm talking about a box of crackers. One's 25 cents and one's 30. Why would you buy the 30 cents box of crackers? Any little thing would set him off. And my mother would try to defend herself, and that's when he got angry and would start throwing things, not necessarily at her.
Yeah.
But that was the way he expressed his anger. But usually it was after he started drinking.
Yeah.
At first, when he came home, he was nice. But then after he started drinking, he was not nice.
Did you ever have siblings at home?
I got three.
Three. Sisters, brothers?
I got an older sister, an older brother, and a younger sister. And
Okay.
Three of us are still living. My older sister died this year. But we all, I think, experienced things. We talked about it, that the anger was I don't know if the drinking was worse than the anger, but I think the anger was worse. Because we were afraid of him.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I think as any child that would have to go through that, would be afraid, honestly, to the point where I can say, even in my story, there were times where I experienced things like that at home, and I didn't want to go home. There were times where I even wanted to just like sleep on the school bus.
Oh.
Because it was like, if I sleep on the school bus, at least I'll be on the bus in the morning for school, and I won't have to go back home and sit and stuff like that. So no, I can resonate with a little bit of that. So you talked about how you went off to college, and I think that at that point it was almost like you're like, I'm finally putting all that behind me, and I can finally be alone. I can finally like start to carve out this space without the fear that I have to walk on eggshells at home and try to avoid him or avoid her. What was college like for you? How did all of that kind of?
Well, college started off rough because I mentioned that I had poor grades. I think my first semester had a 1.1 average, which is far below 2.
Yeah.
And that put me on probation.
Okay.
And strangely enough, this fellow who invited me to the Christian meeting, I finally accepted. And that very night, I accepted Christ. And everything changed.
Was this your freshman year?
Freshman year.
Wow.
I was about to flunk out. I had not even told my parents, but unfortunately, back in those days, they sent your report card to your parents.
Wow. Wouldn't that be like, man, listen, hey, look, know that when you go to college, they're going to send your report card to me.
That was back then. Maybe not now.
I know. I'm just trying to scare them now.
Now it's worse. They text you.
They text me. They'll text me your grades. Yeah, I don't even need the paper.
But it was scary to me in that sense because I didn't have very good study habits, and I didn't have any friends at that point. And the transition was that when I became a Christian, I instantly had 30 friends. No joke. Instantly 30 friends.
Okay, so hold on now, because I know people are like, wait a minute. So you mean to tell me that if I don't have friends and I become a Christian, I'm going to have friends? And
no, I didn't say it like that. I said that's what happened to me.
That's what happened to you. Yeah. I was just making sure.
But I had no friends. Before that, I had no friends in high school. Not a girlfriend, not even a guy that I would call a friend. Not really.
Right.
I had sports mates, but they weren't really friends that we just hung out together or anything like that.
Right.
And I didn't drink, and that's a long story there.
I don't drink. That took you out of a certain category in college.
I have no fondness of drinking.
Okay.
None at all, because I think it's not that drinking per se is wrong.
Right.
But it leads to some really bad habits.
Yeah. Well, I think you saw those bad habits at home that you probably were just like, I don't want to go down that road. I saw where that road. I think that's a lot of us in that we've seen.
It's a vow.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. And what did that vow sound like?
It's not a vow that's inviolable. In other words, I joke with my nephews because they used to like to drink beer a lot, and I said, "Hey, Uncle Scott, how many beers have you had this year?" And this is the middle of the year. 3. I doubt if I ever drink more than 6 in a year. And I don't even drink. I might have I guess you call a hot toddy for a bad throat every once in a blue moon.
Right.
But a bottle of whiskey will last me 20 years.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's the friends. The best part about, I know it seems strange, 30 instant friends. I'm not saying close friends,
but community.
But it was 30 people that went to a weekly Christian meeting.
Right.
And the other part, which is the best part, was we met in the chapel. This was the oldest building on campus, Rutledge Chapel. Been there since 1810 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And we would meet every day for prayer. But, of course, college students, they don't have the same schedule, right?
Mm-hmm.
We had a notebook, and we would write down our prayer request. We even had a column that says when the prayer was answered. And the first prayer request, this is no joke, the first prayer request, my dog is sick, pray for him. And the next day, they had a check mark in the box.
Wow.
The first prayer was for a dog. And I thought that was a little strange, but but I'd had dogs, so I understood that. But you would meet somebody at the chapel, 1 or 2 or 3 people, whatever hour you came, somebody would be there.
Right.
You could pray with them. You could pray by yourself. You could just go up there and didn't have time, and you just wrote down your prayer request, and they were all there. It was, even though it wasn't a complete like one-on-one or a meeting, it wasn't a weekly meeting.
Right.
It was still always a connection, the whole time. 4 years I was there.
Wow. So I think the beauty of that is that you're like, okay, like I've come into this community of other Christians who are praying alongside each other, who are praying for each other, who are praying for things that, as you said, is as simple as like, hey, my dog's not well.
Yeah.
And I think the beauty of that is that I'm thinking about back to even my story of how, like, as I begin to even get closer to Christ, community came along with that.
Sure.
And it wasn't like you said, it wasn't like, well, we were best friends, but it was
No.
like I wasn't doing this alone. It was almost like joining a club where
was.
others were chasing after Christ, and they're also convening and gathering together to support each other.
Correct.
So was that the first time you'd ever had anything like that in your life?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I had never had any friends, as I told you. I had acquaintances, but no real buddy kind of friend and no girlfriend. I mean, people were nice to me, but I was not one of the elite, like one of the top athletes, they call big man on campus.
Okay.
Or they didn't say big girl on campus, but still they had the beautiful girls or the popular girls.
Right.
Basically the cheerleaders.
Okay.
That's who you wanted to meet.
Okay.
That's you wanted to have a date with a cheerleader. Well, no, I didn't even aspire to that because I knew I wasn't on their level.
Okay,
I just
so hold
wanted a date.
on. Okay, so wait a minute.
That's my image.
Right. So do you feel like that image came from the things and the ways you saw yourself before you even got to college?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I feel like your mom or somebody else might have continued to water that seed in your mind that said you would never amount to anything. And so in a way, you figured that nobody would want the guy who would never amount to anything if you believed that.
Right. I don't know if I connected all the dots.
Oh, well, no.
But
I don't
still,
think you would have connected it, but I think sometimes the things that happen in our life fuel us forward, but we don't know what's actually like the gas that we've used. We just know that we're just flying forward.
we just trying to get along, and honestly, my brother and I, we never really got along. And my one sister was really, really bossy, and she was 5 years older. My younger sister was 5 years younger, and we never really related too well. So I felt even isolated within my own family. I felt kind of like I was alone because it was, as they say, a dysfunctional family. It really was. I never heard the term until I got to college. But it was a dysfunctional family.
Well, I think based on what you described, it sounded like your family was mimicking each other. And so you said that like, okay, well, I never got what I would have liked from my parents.
Right.
But a lot of times, no matter what age you are, no matter where you come on the line of like, okay, well, I was the youngest, I was the middle, we're all looking to our parents to show us how to like move and how to act and how to love and how to treat others. And so when the parents set the mode or set the example, then everybody else follows. So like your oldest sister is like, okay, well, this is how they love. So this is how I love you, or this is how they spoke. So this is how I speak to you. And so I think a lot of times we're a product of what we've always seen. And so
Sure we are.
it's weird because even me and my sisters, we're not. For the longest, affection was weird, even with my sisters. Like hugging, like that was like, hey, what's going on?
Weird.
That was in the beginning, because it was just something I never really experienced a lot of affection. So as I got around people, especially when I came into like Christian community,
Right.
people like to embrace you. Embracing for me was weird. It was like, okay, like I'll shake your hand, but like. My first thought wasn't to hug.
I wasn't that close to you, so why should I hug you? That kind of
it's
thing?
like if I never really hugged my mom like that,
Right.
why would I hug you?
Right.
Like I guess and it's not that I ever put that all together. It was just I demonstrated what I had always done, which was not a lot of really touchy things. Right. So whether it wasn't like my mom said, well, we don't hug, it's just it became a part of me. And so almost like as you're describing it, I'm like, okay, it sounds like what he experienced or what his siblings experienced, even though I'm sure all of y'all experienced something, you internalized it differently. You guys were a product of your parents.
Of course.
And that you didn't have one sister that was like, okay, well, she was like my mom. She was always there for me to encourage me, to support me. No, it was almost like she was another version of my mom. And so
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of. I mean, they were different personalities, but my sister, honestly.
Okay, so look, before we jump back into the conversation, I want to ask you a quick favor. If these conversations have encouraged you, challenged you, or simply reminded you that you're not alone, would you take a second to subscribe, like, and share this episode, all right? Every share helps us reach another man who may be struggling silently and needs to hear that hope, healing, and freedom are still possible and found in Jesus Christ. And if you'd like to stay connected with everything happening around God's glory and men's real stories, visit our website where you'll find past episodes, podcast updates, merch, and resources designed to support men on their journey towards healing, freedom, and a deeper relationship with God. Thank you for being part of this community. We don't take this support lightly. Now, let's get back to the conversation.
Struggled a different subject all her life with mental illness. And I'm sure my father was mentally ill too. I mean, he had all the characteristics, and he ended up in a mental institution for a while, but not long term. But it's a whole different issue. But it was just the symptomatic of the dysfunctional lifestyle that we grew up with.
Got it. Wow. So where did that? Do you feel like that ever popped up? Because you're in college now. You're sharing how you were in college, and how you've gotten community now in a Christian community. Do you feel like what you lived in for so long popped up in encounters that you had with other brothers and sisters as you begin to navigate this college life,
right,
and this Christian life?
Well, yeah, it was totally different, which was good in ways, but the challenge was, how do I navigate this academic environment, which I didn't have the tools, or at least I didn't have the skills to say, listen, professor, because you didn't have personal conversations with professors. Well, professor, what do you really expect? Now, they would line it out for you. They would give you a syllabus, and they would say, this is how many papers you have to do. You will have a first, midterm that counts so much your grade. You had a final exam, but never did they tell you how to do it.
Right.
Never told you how.
Right.
But if they were really good, and there were a few like this, listen, if you're smart, this is when you will start your paper.
Okay.
If you're smart,
right.
This is what you'll do. And some of them would tell you, listen, my exams don't come from the textbook. They come from my notes. You better be good about taking notes. And if you're not good at taking notes, you better be close friends with somebody who is. And so it was a system you had to learn. And it was difficult, but my friends did help me, and I would say at least they would. I said, "Look, I got this exam coming up, and I'm scared to death. Would you pray for me?" Now they not necessarily they're not taking the same class necessarily or the same subject. Some were good in math, some were good in chemistry, some were good in history. I was good in nothing, but I was better at some liberal arts things than others. But they would help you. I mean, you had the feeling they really cared.
Right.
Now I did not date the girls in our Christian group. I didn't.
Okay.
I don't say I couldn't, but I didn't. And the guys, we had our own Bible studies. The girls had their own Bible studies, and we lived in separate dorms, which was normal for then.
Right.
But later they had co-ed dorms, which I thought was strange.
Okay.
But
wait.
That was strange.
Why is co-ed dorm strange?
Because you didn't have but one. And all the other dorms were male or female.
Right.
Well, they were like one floor would be female and the next floor would be male. And there was only one dorm like that.
Okay.
And I thought, now they're running around in their underwear, or what's going on here? This seems strange to me. And I didn't think that was normal. And I really didn't think girls were to be used like that.
Got it. Okay. No. I get it. I totally understand. So with this life that you were now, as you could say, pioneering,
navigating,
and navigating, and your I guess like me, you realize like, okay, like this is not going to come easy. This whole schooling, this whole thing. how did you, because you said my life got better when I became a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
What about your life? Like what do you feel began to change? What began to feel better in your life?
Well, I was really upset and concerned about my grade point average, and I really had no choice about what courses I can take. The first 2 years is pretty well scripted. Mm-hmm. You don't have a lot of choice. Mm-hmm. You're going to take English. You're going to take chemistry. You're going to take biology, all these things. You don't have a major the first 2 years.
Right.
So, well, what am I going to do about these courses I don't like? How am I going to get help with them? And so the thing that helped me more than anything was my attitude changed, because I was filled up with hope now. Because before it was me against the world kind of thing, or me against the system. You know, I got to beat the system. Okay, how can I trick the system? How can I get better grades without trying too hard? You know, those kind of things.
For sure.
But the process in my mind was there is a way. That was the thing. The hope was there in my mind. There is a way. Right. There has to be a way, because God is all powerful. God can do anything. Right. God knows the subject better than I do. Sure. You know, I wasn't asking for magic. I wasn't asking for miracles. I was just asking for a better way to approach life and how to look at life. And I felt closer to God than ever in my whole life. Yeah. And I felt like he was on my side. Right. And he cared about me.
Yeah.
And my friends too.
Yeah. So if nothing else, that gave you a like you said, almost like hope to say, okay, hope. I'm going to do this. I can do this. Yeah. Right. Okay.
It was hope.
So how did that play out?
Well,
don't. I mean, you're holding us to suspense right now.
I couldn't change the number of courses, the type of courses, but I would talk to guys, mostly guys, and I'd say, listen, have you taken this course? They might be 1 year ahead of me. Okay, I would ask them. He said, yeah. Now here's the tip. You want this professor. You want this professor. I said, why? He says, is he easier or harder? No, he's not easier, but he explains things better.
Right.
And if you need to, I still remember this Professor Balknight. He was a freshman. He only taught freshman chemistry. Nicest guy in the world. And he says, first day of the class, if you need help, my door is always open. But I'm only here from 1 to 5.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, he had boundaries. He had boundaries.
That's fair.
Okay.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And you thought, was he just being nice? No. One time I was really having a problem with some chemical calculations and stuff. It was freshman chemistry. Now this is not the hardest stuff in the world, because I'd had some chemistry in high school. But I said, Professor Balknight, what do you think about this? And he would look right at you and says, okay, son. He wouldn't use your name. Or no, he might say Gerard or something. I forget what he said. He says, listen, there is a trick to this. Now, this is what you do. This is how you look at the problem. This is how you solve the problem. And he would explain in great detail. He wanted you to understand the subject. He wanted you to pass it, and not all professors were that way.
Yeah, no, that's good.
So you got the tips from the students, and you had to line up for each class. You literally get in line to sign up for a class. And if you were far back in the line, you would not get in the class. Yeah. So you had to get up at if the line opened at 8 o'clock, you better be there right there, or even ahead of time, because you wanted to be the first 100 to sign up, because that's all they were going to have. And having the right professor made all the difference for me. But I was more motivated. I didn't put off things. I didn't procrastinate like before. I didn't waste a lot of time. I was not interested in joining a fraternity. Of course, they would have rejected me anyway. So
come on.
I mean, that's the way I thought.
Okay, so if nothing else, son, I hope you're taking notes. Okay, so nothing has changed. College, when it comes to college, getting the right classes and getting the right professors is still a sign up thing. It is still a registered thing.
But it's online.
It's online. He's right. So we're getting a lot of pointers here tonight.
Okay.
So now I was with you, man, and then you lost me when you said, okay, I didn't join any clubs or any fraternities because they wouldn't accept me anyway.
Okay.
So where does
I literally knew people who had gotten in fraternities, and I knew what they did because my brother was in a fraternity.
Okay.
All they did in their spare time, no joke, was drink and have parties.
Okay.
I didn't have that kind of time.
Okay.
It was a waste of time to me. Didn't care about drinking.
Yeah.
Had no relationship with girls.
Okay.
I mean, it was a waste of time.
Okay.
So I would spend more time in the library, and I didn't get a lot of help from other students because they can't study for you.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I would say, what is the most important things? I would take copious notes. I would ask professors questions, especially the smaller classes. I mean, freshman chemistry, 300 students in a class.
Right.
That one professor was the best one I've ever had.
Okay.
Because he was nice and he would help you if you needed it.
Got it. Well, no, I was just making sure that it seemed like you were trying to downplay yourself or say that I wouldn't be accepted because of who I am.
That's the way I thought too.
Okay. And that's what I thought. But also you felt like you had nothing to add. You weren't going to.
It would be a distraction.
Okay. Or, you could have, hey, look, I fully believe, and I fight with this a lot, that the idea that I wouldn't be a good selection or I wouldn't be a good fit to go into certain spaces. Or I ask myself, well, why do they want me to come and join them? Or why should I go and hang out with these people? I'm not like them. I don't do the things they do. And I miss that sometimes God invites me into spaces, not to over spiritualize it, but to come into that space to bring light into a space where a lot of people are sitting around drinking because they don't feel like they may feel almost like how your dad felt. Not to say that's exactly, but there may be a lot of things that they're masking by drinking or running after women as I did in my life, that they don't have anybody to come in and say, well, hey, look, listen, I met some really cool people. And even though I know that this fraternity is all about drinking and partying and girls, I believe that if you guys were to come with me to this chapel on these particular days, I believe that you might find what you're really looking for. Okay. Now, and of course, I never thought about it like that. Yeah, for sure.
I never thought of it that way, but I know that there were different fraternities, and some of them were more studious than others. Some of them were more academically oriented. Some of them were more sports oriented, but most of them, you just had the impression they were just interested in parties and drinking. Now, how they passed, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think they had ways of helping each other.
Well, don't get me wrong. I was in a fraternity, and I will say that it's not that our main course was drinking and girls. It was just the pastime. It was our side. It was like our elective. Don't get me wrong.
Just on the weekends, maybe.
Yeah, just the weekend electives. It was a weekend elective, and but the truth is that we still were good students, and more importantly, we were still in a community of people who could give me pointers of hey, listen, go get this teacher right here because they're really good at explaining it. So all in all, it was still a community, but there are some communities, like you said, they're rooted in things that is that's not me. Right. But can I be me in a community that doesn't look like me and they still accept me for being exactly who I am?
I wasn't there.
And that's a hard one to do.
I never even applied to a fraternity.
That's fair.
I never pledged. I thought in the back of my mind, now listen, if I could get into a fraternity, remember our brother at a different school was in a fraternity, and I attended some of his parties.
Right.
But they were too wild for me. And I said, maybe, in the back of my mind, I said, yeah, it was only a fleeting thought. But if I join a fraternity, I might meet girls. Now, that was a tempting thought.
Back to
That was
the
a
girls now.
topic.
Might meet girls.
Might, but I didn't want to take the chance or waste. I felt like it was a waste of time because I spent a lot of time with my Christian friends.
Okay.
I didn't have time for a fraternity and them. And so it was not so logical or rational, like saying, "Oh yeah, the better choice is Christian friends." I like my Christian friends, and I didn't feel like I needed a fraternity.
Okay. So then, and you know what? I'm not going to disagree with you, but then
Okay.
that makes me draw a question of like, okay, so then why at this time were you not interested in dating the Christian women and the Christian girls?
Oh, I was interested.
Okay.
But I still, I was scared. I felt like they would say no, and they would use the excuse of, "Well, listen, we're friends. We shouldn't date." Now, I had a few dates, but these were like what we call friend dates. We would go out. I mean, there was no hanky-panky going on.
Right.
We would just spend time together. We would have a meal. We'd have a nice conversation. And at 8 o'clock, literally by that time, they would say, "Okay, I've got to go in and I've got to study, and I'll see you later."
Okay.
It was nothing real involved.
Got you. So, but I noticed how you said, you were scared to really go any further. Now, where'd that fear come from? Where did that fear come from?
I had it all my life.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't have a girlfriend but one date in high school.
Right.
I didn't even know how to handle myself. Do I try to kiss the girl? Is that too forward?
Right.
Do I try to hold their hand? Is that too forward? What do I say?
Okay.
It was difficult.
That makes complete sense. But hey there, before we continue on with today's episode of God's Glory and Men's Real Stories, we want to take a moment to share something special with you. Our new sponsor, Confined Space Coffee. Are you looking for a coffee that fuels your heart and uplifts your spirits? Well, look no further. Confined Space Coffee isn't just your average brew. It's a handcrafted blend designed for those who seek connection, inspiration, and a good coffee to sip while sharing stories. It's made from the finest beans sourced from around the world, where every cup is a testament to hard work and dedication, perfect for you, our listeners, who appreciate the beauty in every step of the journey. At Confined Space Coffee, they believe that great conversation and deep connections often happen over a warm cup of coffee. Whether you're getting ready for a long day or winding down and listening to a powerful conversation on our podcast, their coffee is there to accompany you. So here's the best part as a special offer to our listening community. You can use the code GLORY, capital GLORY, at checkout to receive 10% off your first order. That's right, experience the vibrant flavors and rich stories waiting for you in every sip. So why not brew some Confined Space Coffee today? Gather around the table, share your own stories, and let the warmth of great coffee bring you closer to those you love. Remember, brewing coffee is an art, and at Confined Space Coffee, they're dedicated to making every cup a masterpiece, while bringing attention to the dark, confined spaces we find ourselves in that bring us closer to God. Now, let's get back to today's episode. Remember, whether it's sharing God's glory or exploring men's real stories, great coffee makes everything better. Thanks again for tuning in. Are we ever going to get back on the horse and try again? Are we ever going to shoot, or does that one moment define us? And I think a lot of times moments in our life define the guy who shows up next. Right. It defines how we show up in this world because of what people have said about us, what people didn't say about us, and what happened that didn't go the way we had planned it to go. Like, oh man, I just knew that I would get a second date. I was hoping I'd get a second date. So I think in all of our lives, like that's a part of it, of like, yeah, like what happens next, and do I want to experience it again?
How do you feel? And I'm sure on a subconscious level, I was looking for a more positive identity and get it from someone else, and I would have liked it to have been a girl.
For sure. I
had guy friends, but the girls were more elusive because, I was of the opinion that if I really liked a girl, I would probably marry her. I was
fair.
I was not going to just have a date, have a good time, and say, "See you."
You're right.
I wanted something more permanent.
Yeah,
And that's what that I was afraid of, because, I didn't even want to date a girl and then have to say, "I'm sorry, it didn't work out."
Yeah.
I didn't want to hurt someone.
For sure.
But certainly I didn't want to be hurt.
Yeah.
But listen, I didn't have enough self-image to say, "I'm sorry, this just didn't work out." But of course, what they call nowadays is ghosting. That's what I would do, because if you didn't call them back, that was it.
For sure. Yeah. No, that's fair.
Now you just don't text them, or you don't email them, or you don't contact them at all.
Yeah.
Same idea.
Might have done that a time or two. And you're right. It was more so because I didn't feel like I didn't feel like I could explain or to say why. But no, I get what you're saying. So in all of that, how is that, not to fast forward, but like, how is that look in your life? Like, how has that played out in your life? Because I'm sure you graduated from college,
yeah,
right?
graduated from college, and I mean, it was a topsy turvy ending, because after all the trouble I'd had with my grades, I did well. I mean, I probably had some semesters I did 3.0. Never a 4.0, but I did 3.0. I ran into harder courses and I had to change majors. But I only graduated, I still remember, 2.013. That was my final graduating GPA. GPA.
Yep.
Yeah, that was the final. And it took a miracle, really, to get that, because professors, I needed certain grades like B's on these last two courses, and I didn't get them initially, but I got to retake the exam. And then the professor said, "No, you can't take it, but I'll give you the B."
Okay.
So, I mean, it was difficult, but actually I felt better about myself at the end of college, and I was supposed to go in the Navy. I had been in the Navy Reserve for 5 years, and I was due literally to go to Vietnam in the fall of 1970. But at the same time, I felt this call to ministry and ended up going to seminary, and they gave me a deferment and they gave me an honorable discharge at the convenience of the government, which had nothing to do with seminary. Nothing. They offered that to me before I ever got into seminary. So it was a very strong confirmation to me. So I spent next 3 years in seminary, but that was kind of as good as college was. Seminary was the opposite. Even though I made friends,
right,
and I got pretty good grades,
right,
but the professors were always challenging, not on a subject matter. They were always challenging you personally about what did you really believe about God, about the scriptures, about the world, and they really were very confrontational because I had taken a more conservative tack, and one professor actually told me, he says, "Listen, if we can get you to lose your faith, so be it."
Okay. So wait, do you feel like they were doing that because they knew if they could get you to lose your faith, then they knew when you got out, this world would do the same thing to you?
Maybe.
And I think that they were almost trying to convince you to turn around and walk away from that. But if you continued to push through with endurance, perseverance, you would see it through, not only from a college standpoint, but from what calling God may have.
See, you're asking me to read somebody's mind. I can't do that.
Yeah.
But here's my take was, and it was offensive to me, but here's my take.
Okay.
They didn't, this is my opinion now, because not all, but most of the professors, except for 2 or 3, were of a different mindset than me. They were highly educated, But most education, particularly in the religious studies area, is very secular. You can go to Harvard and get a degree, what they call in divinity. That was the subject matter.
Right.
But you would come out on a at a different place than if you went to a Southern Baptist school or like a Liberty or some school that was a very strong Christian school. They didn't really have that many back then.
Okay.
They had a few. But I went to what they call a middle of the road school, which means they would throw every opinion at you. Now, you could choose to believe them or not. They didn't force you to believe their point of view. But I chose to believe that the Bible was the infallible Word of God, and most of them did not believe that. They didn't believe in the virgin birth. They didn't believe in the physical resurrection, but some of them did. So I would gravitate toward those that I believe took a very strong view of the Bible. And so that's why I struggled, because there were so many divergent opinions in seminary.
I see what you're saying.
It seemed like, now this is my opinion, they were pushing you toward, now listen, let's keep an open mind about was there one prophet, Isaiah, or were there three prophets, Isaiah? That was one of the discussions. Were there three parts? I'm telling you, there's a lot of opinions, and so you had to. You were studying hard, and of course, professors expect you to give back to them what they taught to you.
So they were basically programming you with their beliefs, with their thoughts, and with their.
Not all were like that.
Okay.
But some of them had some very different views from me, and I would have to weigh it out. I would have to ask God. I says, God, what do you think?
Right.
And I would always come to the conclusion that, listen, here's my word. Do you believe that or not? That was the conclusion I came to.
Right.
And many of my fellow students did too. And they never force you to believe any particular way. But it was so different from college, because college was encouraging and I was at a secular school. It's a public university, South Carolina, public university. Any public university you go to, I actually majored in religious studies. The professors I had did not, and they stated so and disagreed with me, because I said, I believe in the virgin birth. I believe in the physical resurrection of Jesus Christ. And they would say no.
So what's crazy about this all is that it's like I would have assumed, clearly I'm looking like an assumption here right now, in that if you are running a department of religious beliefs where we are studying the Bible and we are pulling our beliefs from that, then I thought that we would all be on the same page. But then again, I look at this world sometimes and I think to myself that, okay, I don't believe that my interpretation of the Bible and of who Jesus was is the same as this Christian over here. Mm-hmm. And so I'm learning that was always an assumption, that if we all go to the same church, then my beliefs would be the same as yours. And I'm learning that was a big assumption in life. And you're telling me that's a big assumption when you go into college, when you have professors whose view and interpretation of the Bible is different than the way you read it.
Right. Okay. Exactly. Because see, I had one paper that I did. I still have a copy of it. And it was called The Holy Spirit in Luke and Acts, because the Apostle Luke, he wrote the book of Acts as well as the Gospel of Luke.
Right.
And I went through line by line, all this kind of stuff. And the professor at the end, he tried to be objective. I give him that.
Okay.
And he says, I am so sorry, Scott. I just, not so much that I disagree with you, but I don't think you did a good enough job doing this paper, so I'm going to give you an incomplete, which is kind of a break. It's not a fail.
Okay.
It's an incomplete.
So what, he wanted you to write it again?
So I had to write it again, and I had to, by the end of the semester, the next semester, which happened to be summer school, that I had to redo it. And I sweated and sweated and sweated about that because I said, I'm not changing my opinion, but I'm
Yeah.
going to cite more sources.
I was just about to say, was he telling you that you were wrong, and he
No.
wanted you?
Well, it's just that he said I didn't do enough research, and he was not interested so much in my opinion.
Yeah.
Now, who do you know? What scholars can you quote that support your opinion? Or is your opinion informed by these scholars, or are you imposing your opinion on them?
Well,
that was a big point with us.
So I guess my thought is that if you're taking it, if you're citing the Bible, then it's not your opinion. It is the truth, depending on how you interpret it.
The interpretation is where they would disagree with you on.
Okay.
But they wouldn't go so far as to say the Bible is a bunch of hogwash. They wouldn't go that far. They would say these are reputable documents that have been proven to be accurate and well substantiated. You know, copies have existed for thousands of years.
Right.
But what we're saying is, why do you interpret it this a certain way when over 2,000 years different scholars have disagreed? But mostly, and this was my argument with him, mostly in the 20th century, this one particular century we were living in, is where the disagreements really came. It started earlier, but that's when most of the disagreements. So thousands of years, the scholars were pretty much in agreement. And then in the last century, all of a sudden, they started disagreeing.
So I guess in all of this, because I see this constantly in the world that we live now.
Sure.
How did this play on you? Like I'm guessing that you passed seminary and you moved forward.
Yes.
But with everything that you experienced in seminary, how did that play on what you did next with everything you would obtain and all that you would earn through your accreditations?
Yeah, I think I had I still struggled with the problem of a poor self-image. Now, I will tell you that I was very diligent about doing my studies, doing my work, preparing sermons. I was told by a professor, listen, if you'll do this, you'll be fine. And this is what he said. Write down every sermon for the first 5 years. Then you won't have to, because you will have developed a certain way of thinking, a pattern of thinking. You might need a few notes. You won't need a manuscript. So I had to do the work of spend 10 or 12 hours, I don't remember how much it was, per week on a sermon, which would last 22 minutes.
Wow. Okay.
And so I felt my job was to give them correct information. What I couldn't change was what they did with that information.
Right.
That was the frustrating part, because these were people in the world, even though they claimed to be Christians and they were in the church. But the church is supposed to, in their opinion, the church is supposed to comfort and support them, not try to challenge them.
Right.
And that was the problem that I ran into.
So what made that a problem for you?
Well, partly I was still struggling with my own self-image. I needed people to agree with me in order to get me to feel good about myself.
Wow.
And I really struggled with what is a good, healthy. I didn't have a healthy attitude about myself. So how was I supposed to have an healthy attitude about a church? I had two churches at the first two churches. One was very different. One was very rural, blue collar, and the other one was more white collar, more professional. Two totally different sets of people, but the same attitude existed in both.
Right.
Listen,
you were
what is the church? This is my opinion. What is the church going to do for me? Not what is the church going to challenge me on, or what should I push should I push to the point of saying, listen, what in your life is wrong? That would be one of my questions. And they would say, well, I don't really want to think about that. And I would say, ask myself the same question. What am I doing wrong? And I never really got any good answers. I never
From yourself
and God. I never really got any good answers. Now, I did the right things, just like in my family, and I didn't connect all the dots. In my family, I always tried to do the right thing. Why? The consequences were either a spanking or a denial of some privilege that I would have enjoyed, like going out to play or go riding the horses or, doing different things that I was allowed to do. So in the church, you're punished, in a sense, by a church if you don't tell them the things they want to hear. And I found that to be true. They didn't like to be challenged.
What? We don't like to be challenged.
Oh,
I don't know about that. Yes, no, you're right. Like, challenge is uncomfortable. Challenge means that I have to face myself and look at myself. Right. Challenge means I have to go below the surface. And so I think that no matter what church you go to, I watched it this past Sunday, people begin to squirm when you bring up things that make them think about the things they're doing in a way to where they're like, I didn't consider that wrong. I mean, I thought it was just, I was only doing it a little bit. I was only doing it sometimes. And so if you're challenging me, then either I leave or I address you.
Right.
And say, well, hey, look.
Or agree with you.
There it is.
Right.
Yeah.
And
so
there's a healthy church. There are, few, I was told as a young pastor, listen, don't worry about the first few churches you have. They won't be too good. But the fourth or fifth church might be pretty good. And that was not very encouraging to me.
Wow.
Not very encouraging.
I was about to say, how do you even give it your all in your first two churches if it's like, don't even worry about
I'm just
them.
waiting for the next church.
Yeah, I gotta get to 3. I gotta get to my fourth church. My fourth church is gonna be really good. And these guys are
not be over 40 years old, because they want you in your prime when you go to a church that is what they would consider a healthy church, which I had one church. It was 250 members. It was not particularly a healthy church, but it was a prosperous church, but it wasn't particularly healthy either emotionally or spiritually. And so you were trying to navigate, okay, who am I going to be able to minister to effectively without preferring one over the other?
Yeah.
Not just individuals. We're talking about groups of people who were real Bible witnessing, strong Christians, and others who I'm just here to feel better about myself.
For sure.
I mean, it was a diverse group of people you're working with.
So, okay, so can I say this? I've noticed, I almost noticed like a little trend, a little pattern going here in your story, which is cool. I think we all have patterns in our life that kind of like point to a bigger thing. How and what have you done or doing about how you see yourself before you begin to like see others? Because I believe, just my thoughts, my perspective, that when I see myself, and I think you said this, when I see myself kind of in a I don't see myself well, it's hard to see the well in others. Oh yeah. It's hard to see the good in others when I've yet to find the good in me.
Right.
So what have you doing that has you addressing that or looking into that?
Well, like me jumping ahead, I'll try to keep it brief.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, I'm jumping ahead. So, I mean, I burned out. Literally, I burned out of pastoring. I dropped it for a few years, came back into it, was in and out, different jobs, in and out. And I really came to a crisis. At that last church, I was very disturbed because I knew my time was running out with them. They gave me a year contract because it was an interim thing. But I actually came to a reckoning with myself and said, I know something is wrong, but I don't know how to fix it. I wasn't talking about them. I was talking about myself. So I ended up going to a counselor who pointed out to me one issue that I had never thought about before, and that was the issue of forgiveness. And that would take we talked about that before. But that was a really big issue with me, and that was the most significant turning point since I was in college, and that was 20 years before. So
Wow.
that was the big
20
point.
years before college, even before you even went. Are you saying before 20 years before you went to college?
I was 40 when I came to the reckoning that something was wrong with me, and I was in college when I became a Christian. That was 20 years before. So it took me all that time to recognize, first of all, okay, we know the world's messed up, and we know in many ways the church is messed up. Now we're talking about overall now, not individual churches,
No, I get you.
Overall. So my problem was, why isn't the church better? The real question was, why wasn't I better?
Yeah. Because you are the church, and
Well,
you
I'm
contribute
part
to
of the church.
right?
Yeah, I'm part
You're
of the
part
church.
of the church body,
Right. So
Yeah.
in order to be a leader in the church, I believe you have to be healthy yourself. Not perfect. You have to be emotionally healthy and spiritually healthy yourself.
I agree with that.
I mean,
agree
if
with
you
that.
looked at this example of Jesus, he spent a lot of time by himself.
Yeah. And that has nothing to do with his physical. That had everything to do with his mental.
Well,
And his spiritual. Yes.
Connecting with God,
100%.
away from the distractions, away from the questions of the disciples, which their questions were, Jesus, how do we do that? Their questions were, listen, I don't think we're capable of doing what you do, and you kind of scare us.
Yeah. Or I thought you came to do this, and so why haven't we done that yet?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a changing dynamic. But I think because of counselors that I had, Christian counselors, I've been to psychiatrists, I've been to psychologists. All these people began to point out, not in the best part was not in a condemning way, like, well, here's the reason you're messed up because you're a sinner. That wouldn't have helped me
At all.
That wouldn't have helped
At all.
I knew I was a sinner. I knew that.
Yeah.
But the question was, how do I move forward? How do I become emotionally healthy? Forget about pastoring a church. I'm just talking about me.
Right.
And that was where I began to learn through a lot of series of seminars and different things that, God doesn't feel poorly toward me.
Mm-hmm.
God doesn't hate me. Mm-hmm. God is not abandoned me, which I had felt before. He has a loving relationship with me, which I can reciprocate because I know he does it toward me. I can return it because I know I'm safe.
Yeah, no, that's good. Wow. Yeah. It makes me think about the song, he's in it with us, fighting for us, knowing that he does. There's never a point where he's like, oh man, you're too far gone, or oh man, you can't, you keep getting it wrong. It's like, I have to see that he continues to walk alongside me as a person who's imperfect, as a person who falls short, as a person who messes up. And it's like, when I see it that way, it's like it changes a lot of things about
takes the pressure off.
Yeah.
Because instead of this is the one quote I got from Grace Life Ministries, which I'll never forget. I can almost tell you the day I heard this. It was the year 2000. The month was January. The day I might not can tell you, but they said, listen, do you look at yourself as a sinner saved by grace? Or do you look at yourself as a saint who occasionally sins? Big difference.
Yeah.
And I began to believe, and I embraced totally after 8 weeks of attending classes every day, 5 or 6 hours a day for 8 weeks. I began to believe that truly they were right.
Yeah. And, okay, so tell why does that matter so much, the way you see it, whether you see it as a sinner saved by grace or or someone who has been saved, set free, and sins occasionally.
Well, it's as they say, a paradigm shift, because do you look at yourself as which I did for a long time, as a flawed human being trying, a pastor, believe me, many of them really try to do the right thing,
right?
Minister in the right way, preach good sermons, yes, but get along with the people they are working with, right? Now, that's a pretty fleshly, we would use the term, fleshly approach. We're trying to avoid, in many ways, doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
We want to do the right thing, but we're also trying to avoid doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Now, but the other side of that coin is, as Paul addresses every single letter in the New Testament to the saints, he doesn't call them sinners. You look it up. Now, there are terms where there are places where Paul directly calls, I would say, individuals sinners. You were one of these.
Right.
Such were you.
Right.
And this is particularly in Romans. But the approach gets much softer in the Pauline letters, which I think there were 7 of them. Ephesians, Colossians, Philippians, you know those. They get a lot softer. And I don't think it's because Paul changed his mind. I think it's because he had matured in his way of ministering to people, and he was in prison himself. He didn't have an easy road. He was in prison when he wrote most of these letters. We actually called them the prison letters. Some of them the prison letters. Yeah, because he wrote them in prison.
But also, like they told you, he was probably on his 3rd or 4th church at this point, so it got better.
Well, the truth is, Paul started anywhere from 10 to 30 churches in a 10-year period of time. Sure. So he was not the pastor. A little different. Timothy was a pastor, but Paul was not a pastor. But he was like an overseer. He was the pastor's pastor. He was like a bishop. Okay, but when you think about that, and you think about, okay, me. I am a saint who occasionally sins. Yes. Now, I don't keep lists of when I sin. I don't have books thick enough to do that, because I can sin in thought, word, or deed. There's 3 different ways. And then there's a 4th one. There's a sin of omission. You just don't do what you know you're supposed to do.
Right.
That's an omission. That's a big category like that. But despite all that, how does God think about me? How does he think about me? And the Bible tells you very plainly, I have loved you with an everlasting love. This is in Jeremiah, I think, 33. There's many other scriptures. You can check that out yourself. But is God coming from an attitude like many people accuse God of being judgmental, vindictive, and wrathful? Yes, there is a side of God like that. But if you are his loving child and you desire a loving relationship with God, God is more than going to accommodate you.
For sure.
Because he cares about you in the deepest possible way. Yes, you could mess up. But why do you think the Bible talks so much about confession? Why do you think the Bible talks about forgiveness so much? It is important, but it is something you can complete. It's something that can get you to one point and move on. You don't have to be stuck in unforgiveness or unconfession. You can move on.
Yeah. Okay, so how does that, so in saying you can move on, what did that look like in your life? Like how did you begin to see that in your story?
Well, after counseling, only a few sessions, like 3 or 4, I had the breakthrough, forgave my father. A long story there, but I did, and I was able to see different things. I went on many mission trips, probably 20 or 30 mission trips after that. I didn't do any more pastoring, but I looked at life, I looked at opportunities differently. I was more excited, more energetic, more optimistic, not naive. I would not say naive. If you've ever been a pastor, you begin naively, but you end up not naive.
Okay.
Because you realize these are real people. Yes, you can still demonstrate the love of God. You can still challenge people to a point.
Right.
To a point. Challenge is not the only thing pastors are supposed to do.
Right.
You can encourage. You can compliment. You can love in the phileo sense of the word.
Right.
Brotherly, you can show love, whether man or woman, in the best possible way. You can express that to people, and you can have a good, healthy relationship with people.
Yeah.
But I felt like God was not so much demanding something from me, like stop sinning,
right,
or like you can do better than that, or what is your problem, son? No, it was more like, listen, let's do this together. Let's work together on this. Let's have an adventure. You know,
right.
as many men's groups talk about.
Yeah,
men need an adventure. Well, I think women do too, but it seems to be more for men. And I thought life was more of an adventure than a challenge. Always been challenged in the past, but it's not a job to be done. It's not a task to be completed. It's not a goal to be fulfilled. It's not a dream, whatever. But God is in the midst, really, in the midst of your heart.
Yeah, for sure.
And not that, oh my gosh, not that life is easy. No, it's not easy. But if it was easy, would we need God?
Yeah, for sure.
Not easy.
No, not at all. Because if it was easy, then you're right. We would be able to do it on our own. We would have figured this out. We would have mastered this, and we would say, "Well, God, you can sit this one out."
Yeah.
But it's in those moments where we realize, like, "Oh, wow, I can't do this. Like, this is beyond me. It's out of my control." That we turn to God. It's where we realize that His importance in our lives and His importance in our walk. And it doesn't feel like this parent that you got to go to and be like, I know I never call, but like I was hoping that like you would answer this time and help me. It's this relationship where you're like, hey, Dad, look, I know we had talked about this all week.
Sure.
But at this point, I'm in a space where I've got to give this to you because I have done as much as I can. You've led me as far as I can go, so I'm going to trust you with the rest. Right. And I think that's where He really shows up and begins to do things in our life that's greater than what we could do even in our best day.
Of course. I know some people don't like this term, but I do. We, yourself and God, we are co-creators. Now that sounds a little strong, but it just means, God is the creator. There's no question.
Right.
God is the creator.
Right.
But He's the creator of you.
Right.
Now, what you can do with God is co-creation.
I like it. So basically you're saying that He's put in everything. He's put things in you as the creator for you to begin to create. And for somebody like myself who considers himself a creator of things, then it's like, God, you instructed me on how to do these things. You walked with me. You encouraged me along the way to create what we have created here through your wisdom, through your spirit, through your discernment, through different things. I love that. Okay,
it's an encouragement. It's an affirmation. There's a lot of terms which I've learned from psychology that are, I'm not saying psychology is better than the Bible. I'm not saying psychology is a substitute, but I think psychologists, I particularly like people like Carl Jung. He was a great psychologist who was also a believer, and he tried to understand psychologically what was going on, but also spiritually and emotionally. You don't separate the brain from the heart, from the mind. The mind, I think, is different than brain. But I think people try to do all these things on their own.
Apart from there,
that's like a sinner needing grace.
Yeah.
But really, this is a long process for me. But it's God has everything figured out.
For sure.
But He wants to gradually reveal that to you. He's not going to dump it all,
for sure,
like a dump truck.
It would be too much if he did.
Yeah, God, kill me with grace.
Yeah,
no.
So I'm right there with you in that. I mean, like even here, like a lot of what's happened here, and even the structure of this podcast is that I love the way, whether you want to call it therapy, psychology, where they intersect with our faith. I believe that I believe the handshake of the two, to not only understand what God is doing in our lives, but understand what has happened in our lives that has shaped the way we see God, shaped the way we see this world, and shaped the way we see ourselves. That when they interact and God begins to show you who you are and whose you are, then all of that starts to make sense of like, wow, I see how what happened here shaped the way I showed up here. And in understanding that, like not saying, oh, like you talked about earlier, if somebody comes to you and says, well, hey, look, you should look into that. I don't want to. I want to leave that in the past. Right. I believe your answers are in what you consider the past by digging up things that you never wanted to deal with. And so I think that's one reason why me and you have gotten along when it comes to like even the conversations of like realizing that like in spaces, like whether it be the barn or the outpost, we're not saying, well, it doesn't matter about who you've been. We're saying who you've been or who you are was created by God too. Yeah. Who you are is created by God. Sure. And so in knowing how you got here is how God is revealing to you what he's done in your life. Right. Even down to your testimony. Of course. If you don't want to sit with what happened, then you're actually leaving pieces out of your testimony of how God has shown up in your life and working in different parts of even down to like you sharing your story of like, I noticed that pattern. I'm sure if you were to sit with a therapist may notice a pattern of like, okay, man, this guy seems like the way he looks at himself, the way he views himself is apart from how God views him. So imagine if he saw himself the way God sees him and gets to that point. Then he can begin to not only see himself, but he can begin to see others. And I think that's where you got. It's a shift. And a lot of people, I think, overuse the terminology born again. Now that happened to me. It's another whole story about all the things that happened in that. And it was a very radical, sudden thing. Right. But the working out of that, sanctification. I've been working on it for over 50 years. For sure. Yeah. You don't ever arrive. You just get closer to the end of the journey. For sure. But it's a constant journey. And I think I think the born again part is like saying, okay, I was born again. I'm a baby now. So teach me. Yes. And that's where the sanctification comes into play of like, okay, I've been born again. And I know people don't like the whole, I'm a baby Christian, and I don't like it either. But I do believe that the process of sanctification is just like any learning process of like learning who God is, and not just who he is in this world, but who he is to you. Who he is to us personally, and then being able to turn around and talk to other people about who he is to them when they don't know who he is and don't see him in their stories. Right, because the people, will actually. I've heard people say, "Listen, the reason I don't believe in God is because there's so much evil in the world, and don't even realize evil is not from God." Yeah. It's from the other one. It's from Satan. Yeah. And it is a battle. And the men's groups talk a lot about that. For sure. A battle. Yeah, but I think that sometimes a lot of people believe that this world belongs to God because he created it, and miss that this world that we live in right now belongs to the devil. And so that we are here on this world, on earth. I am here not to become a part of this world, but to win people just like I was one for what God has done already. He's already saved us and set us free. If you want to stay here and just be a citizen of this world and mimic this world, well, then I think that I'm not going to tell you that, hey, that's the wrong way, but I'm telling you that there is eternity that I am worried about more so than what I'm doing here.
Yes.
Like I realize that I am here just for a small vapor. I'm here for a small time. What I can truly look forward to is not only God here, like as he says, bringing heaven here to earth, but I'm excited about the eternity that I get to go to next. And so if I'm so focused on just what I do here, oh yeah, I'm gonna worry about like building wealth and building all these things so that I can hopefully my kids can be great. But it's like, okay, if I could ever do one thing that I feel like would change my kids' lives and my grandkids' lives, is to teach them how where and what they're doing now is going to shape and dictate where they spend eternity. Oh yeah. And if I can do that, then it's less about how much they gain, how much they build, how great our last name becomes, but more about like what God wants to do in the time that we have here before we go to spend time for eternity with him.
Right. This is the training ground.
Yeah.
The earth is a training ground. And a good concept that I've learned along the way, and which just took me a long time to figure it out, or not figure it out, but understand it. That is, eternity starts when your heart is united with God. That's when eternal life starts. It's not when you die.
I like that.
The Christian is born twice, but only dies once. That's a concept I think is very interesting.
That's good.
It's interesting to me how people look at things. Yes, I mean, it could be easy to get into the battle. And I know it's real, and I know it's there. The devil is real. But I don't focus on that. I focus on God's eternal kingdom, because that's what I am part of. Why should I focus on something that I'm not a part of?
Yeah,
focus on something I'm a part of. Yes, you're going to run into conflicts, because people in the world, they are going to oppose not only you, but God, and because you're part of God.
Right.
But just because they oppose it doesn't mean that they won't eventually join it.
For sure. 100%. I agree with that. So if you were to leave here today after sharing your story, what's one of the biggest takeaways you would want people to remember about you, about your story, and about the life you've lived up to this point?
Well, I go back to what happened to me when I was first born again. I was given this sense of hope, and I think a lot of people forget there is hope. Preachers love to say hope is a verb and a noun. Well, that's a grammatical distinction, but hope can be a very real reality in your mind, because when you lose hope, you are in serious trouble.
Sure.
And your hope is not based on an idea or a philosophical concept. It's based on a person, which is Jesus. He is the hope. He's called Paul calls him the blessed hope.
Yeah.
And that's what people need to hang on to, is hope. Not wishful hoping, like I wish I got this for my birthday, or I hope I get this for my birthday.
Right.
No, my hope is that God is in control of my life. I'm not saying like the whole world,
right?
But you can choose to let God be in control of your life.
Yeah.
And as best as you're able to do so, and God help me to be more trusting and more hopeful about the future, because when we know the end, we know it's good.
For sure.
And we can dwell on that rather than the problems or the challenges of this world.
No, for sure. Yeah, no, that's good. That's so true. Coming from a person who has at one point or another lost hope, has found himself in a place where I believe the lies that hope was pointless. I think that is a great way to leave out and encourage people that there is hope, that there is hope, no matter how bad it gets. So no, I appreciate you sharing that today. I appreciate you coming today. Because sure. I know we talked about this and it was like, oh, and you walked in and you were like, oh, there's cameras? Like, okay. So yeah, no, I threw you for a loop. But I appreciate, I hope that this just springboards whatever God has for you next and what he wants to do in your life.
I'm looking forward to it.
Because yeah, no, I truly believe that he has something special. Even in like our yes to say, yeah, I'll share my story. Yeah, I would love to be a part of this and see how God uses it. And I wish more people were like you when it came to like how you approached me and were like, I feel like God has been calling me to share this story, not because of like, oh, well, yeah, I want people to see me, but I know God will do something in somebody else's life that's lost hope, that sees himself different than how God sees them in different things. So sure. I appreciate you sharing that today.
You're welcome.
Well, hey, listen, I normally it's funny in my first 2 seasons, I always had something to leave out with. I always had some wise words. And I'm not going to throw it on my son. And my son's looking at me like, don't you throw it over here. Like I'm still processing through what you guys talked about. But I think that the beauty of these conversations is that they're always, in a way, they encourage me to look at things from a different perspective. You dropped a couple gems here today where I was like, oh man, I didn't even think about it like that. I never looked at it like that. And definitely don't plan on going to seminary now if that was ever on my bucket list.
Well, no, they're not all that way.
I know. But I'm excited about, as always, I'm always excited about what God's going to do next, what God does through these conversations. I appreciate you coming and just being vulnerable and sharing a lot of your story, and just pray that you see a return on your yes in a way that's it may not look the way you expect it to, but it may bring more people to say, wow, I didn't know that about you. Wow, that changes my perspective on even who you are. I think sometimes, like we always say, you don't know a man till you know his story.
Right.
But you don't know a man if he doesn't share his story.
Right. And so, you can't force it out of them, but people have to, I think, have a confidence. I have a lot more confidence than I used to. I have a lot better self-image because, when you're in the pits, and you think, what have I got to share? Because all you've got is, people don't read books about people who are failures. They read books about people who success. So I couldn't write a book until now.
Yeah.
Because I've got a positive ending.
But you know what? I think more people would resonate with the fact that my life didn't always look like success. There were a lot of failures that brought me to this, but success is not always built on success. No. It's built on the failures. It's built on us failing and failing and failing to bring us to this point. So
true.
Yeah. Well, hey, I appreciate you. I appreciate those who come and listen to us today. Those who are joining us, I appreciate you joining in today, son. As always, being my co-host and just soaking in what's. The funny thing about my son is that he's always been in the room for a lot of these conversations. And don't get me wrong, he's missed a lot of them.
Hundreds of them, right?
Hundreds of them. But I believe that what God is even doing in his life is he's continuing to just subconsciously just create little seeds, dropping little seeds for each conversation. And so I'm excited even about the deposit on his life. So, So, hey, I appreciate you guys listening today. Thank you so much for joining us as always. I hope that this story brought some maybe clarity to your life, maybe brought some hope to your life, maybe brought some encouragement to your life today. I pray it just falls on great soil in all of your lives. And we appreciate you joining us. Love you guys. And we'll catch you on the next episode. All right. Y'all be blessed.
Hey, and that wraps up another episode of God's Glory and Men's Real Stories. I'm Justin Moore. If today's conversation meant something to you, make sure you subscribe, leave a review, or share with someone who needs it. You can find past episodes, connect with us, and check out our merch at godsgloryandmensrealstories.com. Thanks for our sponsors for making this possible. Until next time, let's keep giving God the glory in every part of our story.